Answers in Genesis attempts to explain how to survive a secular college and still come out a Christian, and they fail miserably.
I think that's a legitimate concern. After all, they're getting a lot of information at college, and some of that information is not really true. Some of it is along the lines of pushing toward an evolutionary worldview rather than just being objectively, factually true.
I'm sorry, evolution is objectively, factually true. You have to deny inevitable scientific conclusions to continue being a creationist. That is why people become atheists when they go to college, because they realize how ridiculous the whole belief system is when they start getting a real education.
Well, how then do we deal with this? Well, I think first of all, we need to stay solid in the Word of God. Make sure that the student is in the Word of God.
What the fuck does that mean? It sounds like it's gone sexual to me.
Daily would be best. And I realize it's tough to do that when you're a college student and you have all these other things going on.
Daily? Even better. Can we do it 2 or 3 times a day?
But it's very important that we allow God to speak to us, and He speaks to us through the Scriptures. Make sure that you're speaking to God through your prayer life. So that's step number 2.
Oh, that is not what I thought he was talking about. That does not sound fun at all. I do not want to do that.
And then third, make sure that you're in a good Bible teaching church. And there are lots of compromised churches out there, but there are still, in this world, a number of good Bible teaching churches.
You can tell if they're good Bible teaching churches based on their teachings. Do they teach you to hate homosexuals? Do they teach you to hate atheists? The more hate they spread, the more likely they're a Bible teaching church. Look for the hate churches.
And that's very important that you're there every Sunday. And I know that churches offer a lot of extra programs. You're not going to have time probably for a lot of those. But don't forsake the assembling of yourselves together. Make sure that you get together with other Christians.
That'll help make sure you're good and brainwashed.
And also Sunday church service will remind you if you've gotten a little bit off in terms of Bible study or prayer. That'll help get you back on track.
Just in case your brainwashing is wearing off, it'll get you back on track.
Fourth, try to find some other students who are like-minded, who believe the Bible and are biblically solid, biblical creationists, and that's going to encourage you emotionally, spiritually, and rationally too. It's going to give you iron sharpening iron type skills where you can talk about these sorts of issues.
Right. Separate yourself from the world. Only keep friends that believe the same way you do, so nobody ever challenges your beliefs. That's the most important part. I have personal experience with this one.
Also, make sure you get Answers in Genesis resources. That's going to keep you up to date on the latest issues regarding creation versus evolution and what you're being taught in class.
You don't have to worry about shit. Answers in Genesis will do their best to keep you brainwashed with the latest contradictions to scientific facts.
Learn how to think. You can't memorize all the scientific data, but you can learn how to think and how to process it accurately.
Learn how to distrust science at any cost. Pull it apart, twist the data, build straw men, whatever you have to do. Just make sure you don't believe anything a scientist ever says, because there's a global conspiracy to turn God-fearing Christians into atheists with the lie of evolution.
And finally, I'd like to offer one more point that I know will sound a little bit controversial, but I think it's true.
Controversial? No, nothing you've said up to this point's been controversial. You couldn't possibly say anything that would make me think it was controversial.
And that is for students who are going into a hard science that deals with origins like biology or astronomy or geology, and not so much other sciences. But if you're going into one of those three, I think you need to be very careful about who you tell that you're a creationist. In fact, I think for your professors, you should not let on that you're a creationist.
Matthew 10:33. But whoever disowns me before others, I will disown before my Father in heaven. Luke 12:9. But whoever denies me before men will be denied before the angels of God. 2 Timothy 2:12. If we endure, we will also reign with him. If we deny him, he will also deny us. Bad idea. You're risking hell.
Now don't lie, but don't volunteer the information. And I hate to say that because we'd like to witness to everyone. But it turns out that there are some people out there that just have an axe to grind against creationists. We've known of many cases where students have been stopped from getting their degree if their professor found out that they were a creationist.
And why the fuck do you think that is? Could it be because they are willfully denying the obvious conclusions drawn from scientific study? I honestly looked for examples of students being denied their diplomas for being creationists, and I couldn't find any. I even went to some creationist websites like Answers in Genesis and looked for any examples they might cite so I could look it up and find out what the real story was. I couldn't find a single example of it. That's not to say it doesn't happen. I imagine the students probably refuse to do work that requires they believe that evolution is a fact. If anybody doesn't complete their required classwork, Christian or atheist, they shouldn't be allowed to graduate. That means you have to study and understand evolution. Welcome to the real world, dipshit.
So I think it would be best to work with the system. There are honest ways you can do that. When you're answering a test, give back the answer the professor wants. You're being tested on what you were taught, not on what you believe.
Sure, fine, whatever. As long as you actually understand the material that you're being taught. Fine, what the fuck ever.
And then when you get your degree, then you can stand up and say, well, I'm a creationist, and you can use that degree for the glory of God.
A degree that is completely meaningless because you will have ignored and disbelieved everything you were taught for the past 4, 6, or 8 years. That leads to people like me making fun of people like this jagoff. Instead of insulating yourself from any criticism or dissent, why don't you open up to debate and see who's right? If you're correct, you have nothing to be afraid of. But deep inside, you know you're not right. That's why you close your mind and believe whatever these assholes say without question.